For all our calendar checkers out there, it is the weekend, and you know what that means. It's time for the best and fastest growing football podcast out there, ladies and gentlemen. The Sports Agents of Chaos are back once again. Another week, another episode to talk football, and we are continuing our series here in this amazing summer of 2022. At least we hope it's amazing, and we hope it continues to be amazing for us, especially. We are continuing our roundabout the NFL world, and we're going to go division by division with things. But before we get into that, it is a monumentous episode today, ladies and gentlemen. The boys are back all together. Wi-Fi be damned. Other activities that keep us away from the show be damned. All that be damned. We are a triumvirate once again, and that is a cause for celebration. So before we get to the division talks today, and by the title of the episode, as you can all see, we are talking about the AFC North in this episode. We're going to have a little bit of fun here. So, of course, I cannot do this alone. Myself, Iceman Jurgen here to intro you all in. Of course, joined by my compatriots per usual. One of them, our guy, the future game show host of America. He will be America's sweetheart at some point with hosting shows, ladies and gentlemen. Our guy, Justin Zucker. Justin, how we doing?
Doing great. It's good to have the band back together. It's going to be an exciting week. I look forward to this all week. So this is like my Stanley Cup of the week. I don't know. Weird analogy, but I love doing this with you guys. So
hey, we love having you on, brother, and I love the analogy. We'll get hockey in the show in some way, shape, or form, even by references. And good to actually be hearing you this week. The Wi-Fi, we have conquered the Wi-Fi this week.
It's nice to be heard.
So we will have a hopefully flawless episode in that regards, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, when we're talking about flawless, when we're talking about great episodes, we welcome back our man. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, your body tries to hold you back, but the great ones always say, no, we push through. I will not be held down. So returning to us straight out of it, if he wants to say wherever he went to the doctor this week, he can. But ladies and gentlemen, joining us out of the emergency room, Podfather Rick. Rick, how we doing? Did you have to go to the emergency room, actually?
Yeah, I did. You know what? It's good to be alive. I guess I'll put it that way. Obviously, when I go into my tell-all, everyone will realize it's not that big of a surgery. But for me, it was a pretty significant, little incident that I had. So, I'm joining you from my serene recovery room on the third floor of a building in an undisclosed location in Nassau County, and I'm happy to be joining you guys for this. Wasn't the original plan, but you know what? Plans go astray when things happen. So I'm happy to be here live with you guys. So
I was really hoping Rick would just throw out like another random state there, because he says he's in Nassau County, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot rule out the possibility that he could be in Arkansas or something like that. We just can't.
The blue on the wall is too light for Arkansas. This is more like a North Dakota blue, if you will, or a something like a Wyoming blue. Maybe that might be better off. Yeah,
very fair, very fair. Although then again, I don't know if we'd have you on the show this week because I think A, time zone difference, and also B, Wyoming. If we had issues with Wi-Fi last week in New York, I can only imagine the Wi-Fi in Wyoming.
I'd imagine you'd be surprised. I feel like Wyoming's a little bit more wide open than we realize, and the Wi-Fi there's probably a little stronger. Unless you're on T-Mobile, then God help you.
Oh yeah, God help you indeed. So like I said, we're not going to waste any time, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have a little bit of fun here because we always like to have fun, and we always like to, be a little off the wall and be a little chaotic, you could say here, as is the title of the show, Sports Agents of Chaos. So I'm not going to take the mic away from him anymore. Rick, you are here. Tell us all. I should say off the bat real quick. The reason he's been out the last 2 weeks, aside from his cameo appearance in the card last week, it was not due to his procedure he had to undergo. That was previously this week. He was out for other undisclosed reasons the last 2 weeks. May or may not have been a suspension, that first one. And then last week was just, happenstance. All of us are probably going to miss a week or two here, considering things when it comes to like our schedules. But Rick, as it says, this is the tell-all segment. This is a offshoot from the review/rant of the week. To tell the people what have they missed in the life of the Podfather himself.
Wow. Well, Wednesday morning at around 3:45 in the morning, I was asleep, and all of a sudden I woke up with sharp shooting pains in my stomach and my lower right abdomen, and thought, I was really serious about it. I really kind of took it kind of seriously. I tried to, do some things to get rid of the pain. The pain was still there pretty prominently. So about 4:30, I decided it was time to drive to South Nassau Mount Sinai Hospital, and I shot them out because they were absolutely phenomenal with the whole thing. So get that off the bat. The nurses there and the team there were amazing. What had ended up happening was I had early onset appendicitis, and I caught it right away, which was good because, basically I was sitting in the waiting room, kind of, did the whole CAT scan, did the contrast and everything, kind of waiting for the results, and had an idea of what it was. I was told by the doctors coming in that the CAT scan said I was positive and that my appendix needed to come out. And so, I called my wife and I told her, listen, this is the deal. This is what's happening. I called work, told them this is what's happening. Everyone was all, cooperative. Everyone was very, very good about it. The funny thing about appendicitis is that, and I kept my sense of humor throughout this whole thing. I made a joke with my sister who I was texting. I said, you can go to the barber and walk in and tell them, I just want a little off the top, nothing too crazy. You can't tell a hospital, no, my appendix needs to come out. Can you just take that out right away? It's one of those things where, and even the nurses said it's a wait and see. It's a hurry up and wait type of surgery because you got to get to the hospital right away. But then you're waiting there because it's not like the major surgery. It's not a scheduled surgery. You can't schedule in at 10:30 in the morning on a random Thursday that I want my appendix out on this date at this time. It's not something you can do. So fortunately, I got my appendix taken out around, I want to say 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Didn't rupture, which was huge. It was just inflamed. So basically, the surgery was laparoscopic. So very quick incisions, very quick surgical process. And I was out of the OR in about half an hour. I needed to recover because what happened was apparently they discovered too that I have sleep apnea. And so my oxygen levels were actually extremely low coming out of the OR. So I needed to be intubated and have a whole breathing machine basically for about a good 4 or 5 hours there to kind of keep my oxygen levels higher. I was passing out pretty consistently on the operating table. So I stayed there overnight. And then in the morning, I was discharged. I was able to come home and kind of just relax, kind of a little bit of recovery in a way. So basically that's what I've been doing. I've been recovering ever since. I had Thursday, I had Friday, and I had said today. Obviously, some of my obligations had to go by the wayside because, they don't want you driving. They don't want you doing any exercise for 6 weeks. So I'll probably balloon to 290 and be an offensive lineman by the end of this whole thing. But listen, that's also a case where, once you come out of the anesthesia, you have to go on a diet that's very bland. So I've been having a lot of toast and a lot of rich chips and a lot of ginger ale. So it's not the greatest diet in the world, but it's bland enough that it's okay. It's not like spicy foods that I really enjoy. But I guess the whole idea is that, I'm probably going to get back to my normal self within the week. But yeah, I can't do any heavy lifting. I can't do any exercising for 6 weeks. So I won't be shooting off any fireworks on 4th of July, thank goodness. Won't be doing any of that. We'll see how everything else in July goes. But obviously, it was interesting. I hadn't had a major surgery since my wisdom teeth were taken out when I was a junior in high school, and that was a cut and dry process. Probably figuratively and literally cut and dry process. You just take them out and then they're gone. But this was pretty serious, and the best way I can describe it is if it's almost as if you did 300 sit-ups in your sleep nonstop, because the pain and the soreness that's in my abdomen right now, or has been for the past couple of days, has been brutal. With laparoscopic surgery, what they do is they also inflate your abdomen with carbon dioxide to get to the appendix and take it out. And so I had some carbon dioxide build up in my stomach and in my shoulder too. So my shoulder had been radiating pain for the last couple of days, and there was a point where I was yelling and screaming in pain because of the carbon dioxide in my stomach. But I passed that. Walking is a bit of a interesting adventure. I will say, actually, I'm joining you right now from a walker that we found. So I'm really rolling back and forth on a walker as we speak, sort of thing. The point of all this, obviously, is it's very important that I say this because I'm usually not the guy that's going to tell you to do this, but listen to your body. Very simple, very simply put, because I feel like if I had waited, if I had tried to, gut out the pain and gone to work or gone to do any of my other jobs, it might have ruptured and I might have needed to go to a deeper emergency room and it might have really been worse. So fortunately, I was able to kind of catch it the way that it was, because it would have gotten worse if I had let it get worse and then rupture, because that would have been an absolute emergency and I would have need to have gone into deeper ICU from that. So I listened to my body at that point in time, and it was the best thing that I ever did. And like I said, a huge shout out and a huge thank you to the team at Mount Sinai South Nassau. They were understandably very quick to respond, very quick to get me in, very quick to take care of me. We all shared laughs. We all, had fun. And then when I was kind of coming out of my groggy state, they helped me kind of nurse me back into health a little bit. So I appreciate that. And then my one little rant, aside from listen to your body, is that this is going to change the way that I think I'm looking out at life, and I'm looking at, dietary stuff. Like, I mean, we all love the fried foods. We all love the sugary sweets. We all love all of that, but moderation, if not total intolerance of it, is probably for the best. And I think that, because I didn't realize this, but appendicitis can also be caused by something that you eat. So it might have been a case where I ate something that kind of just inflamed it further, where all that buildup kind of just said, you know what, now's the time that the appendix is going to say goodbye. So really, like I said, it's for an extensive surgery. It's also for the most unnecessary organ, because no one really knows what the appendix actually does in your body. But at the same time, when it needs to come out, it needs to come out. I'm happy, like I said, that I got it out as fast as I could, and that I got it out as safely as I could. Obviously, like I said, there are some things in my life that I'm going to need to just cut back on, and some things that I'm going to get used to. Fortunately, there's no real physical therapy with it. So like I said, I'm walking okay. It's a struggle, but I'm walking slower, but at least I'm walking. And like I said, at least I'm happy to be able to do this podcast and come to you from the serene plateau of my Alaskan hideaway, if you will. So, just to be able to kind of do all that is good. But big takeaway, please listen to your body. If something's wrong, go get it checked out immediately, and cut down on all the fried foods and cut down on all the Dunkin', especially because we know they suck. So regardless, aside from all of that, I'm happy to be joining you guys. I'm happy to be able to tell all, and at least be in a space where I can at least do that and just feel like, nice and calm, because it was a rough past couple of days. It really was.
Oh yeah, and we're very happy and very thankful that you're able to, not even just aside from joining us on the pod this week, but also just we've said it in the past, but myself, Rick, and Justin, we have known each other all since it was 2019, when it was all three of us being formally introduced to one another, and it's maintained since, and three of us have always been in constant contact, and that's how the podcast started. So to hear, it was a shock. I remember I literally told Rick, it was because I woken up from coming back from the night shift at work, and I wake up and I check my phone, and I'm usually half asleep. So I saw messages from you guys. I went back to sleep for another hour, woke back up more awake. I see it. I'm like, oh, okay, this wakes me up in the morning. So I saw that. I'm like, oh, but
that's what I said too. And when I texted you guys, I said the good news is I'll be able to join you, but the bad news is the reason why I'll be able to join you. It's and that could be one of two things. I was fired or something happened. And fortunately, I wasn't fired, but unfortunately, something happened. So yeah.
We of course are very thankful that Rick is able to. And for anyone wondering, real quick, we got doctor's permission for him to be on the show. We're not overworking him, and he was like, "I'm going to be on this week." So before anyone says anything, is all medical things are cleared.
My wife, who's been an amazing nursemaid this past couple of days, even said, "Are you doing the podcast this week? You're home. You should do it. You should do something that you love." So that's why I'm here. And fortunately, she pushed me to do that, and I'm grateful for her for all that she's done as well. And my parents obviously helped me out too. So I've had a really good network and a really good support team. And like I said, I'm just happy to be joining you guys and happy to be doing this. So.
Yes, and also shout out to Mount Sinai, because I've actually gone to them once or twice for medical concerns as well. They're always good for me as well. So that the official hospital of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast.
Well, preferred. Officially, we have to wait 2 years for legal to tell us that. Oh no, this is in Queens. Never mind.
Fair enough. Now we need to know where Justin goes to for all his medical emergencies, but that'll be when it's his turn.
Yeah, Mount Sinai.
There you go.
there you go. Try a hat trick right there of big fans here. So, Rick, you're back. Of course, as I said, we are going to go over the AFC North. We have to, ladies and gentlemen, I know it may have been a tough first couple weeks with going through the divisions. We have to go through some of the slums of the NFL divisions to get to the main course. And especially with Rick coming back, I'm like, okay, we got to make sure we need to talk about a real division this week. Some due respect to the the AFC and the NFC South. Not a lot of great teams between those two divisions. This division, however, of course, the AFC North we're going to get to. But, like I said, we have more fun planned just before that. And we have a last-second addition to the show, actually. Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. We have a question. So, me and Rick, you're going to get worked on. You're going to get put through the ringer on this first episode back, especially mentally. We have a question of Justin's trivia. And we also have some NFL Would You Rather. So let's not waste any time. Justin, let's start with the trivia question that you got. We got a pretty good record so far, but Justin has stumped us. I don't know what the record would be off the top. I know me and Rick have answered more than we've got.
The one that we missed was the Alan Page one, Purple People Eaters. That was the one that we missed so far, yeah.
Yeah, the rest we got, but Justin makes us work. Justin, this is why I say future game show host in America, ladies and gentlemen. He comes up with the great questions and it really challenges us. And I hope it challenges you, the viewers at home that listen to this, and you think to yourself as well. And also, by the way, if you have the answer to it, you can comment it. I won't show it nor look at it until after and see if any of you got it right as well. But, if the crowd wants to get involved as well, they can. But Justin, take it away, my man. You are the game show host. Let's go. What is this week's challenging trivia question that you got for us?
All right. Well, this week we are going with all-time stats. And I would like you to answer, currently, who is the league leader all-time in rushing touchdowns and who is the league leader all-time in receiving touchdowns. Now, I am going to preface that again. I'm assuming Adrian Peterson retired and he will no longer be in the league. Obviously, that would be an easy answer. So after that, who is the league leader in rushing touchdowns and who is the current league leader all-time in receiving touchdowns?
So you're saying both for active players?
Yeah.
The two active players.
Give me both players.
Rushing and receiving. Okay.
Active. Because we're assuming that Adrian Peterson is no longer a part of that group. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
It's pretty fair to assume. I don't think anyone's picked him up, as far as I know. So.
No, I would say not either. Okay. This is interesting. This is a really, really interesting one. Because there's a ton of great running backs that are up there. That have retired. Obviously, Emmitt Smith, LT, Marcus Allen. And you have to kind of go down the list really far to kind of figure out where that next person ranks.
I'll say this, Rick, and at least I think for the running back, as opposed to that rushing yards question we had a couple weeks back, I think this is closer. I'm not saying necessarily this person hasn't been around for a while, but I think we can consider some of the running backs who have had peaks recently, and we need to. And some of those guys are more at the forefront for us than the rushing yards, because those rushing yards. I think the most fair thing was to point at, longevity. But this one could be a guy who's just went on a run here the last 5-6 years and is the leader, because some guys may not necessarily have Mark Ingram is the leading rusher amongst active players, right, in terms of yards. I don't think he's scored rushing touchdowns, but I don't know if he would be the rushing touchdown leader per se.
So going back to that, then, do you think we open up with Todd Gurley?
He would be. He's definitely in the conversation. The thing that kind of makes me question it with Gurley is the season, his second season was a down year for him. Mm-hmm. And then once the season after the Super Bowl run, he really fell off. So it kind of makes me wonder, did he score enough rushing touchdowns in that 3 to 4 peak year period to take the lead? Because then I also have to think of Ezekiel Elliott. He was a beast throughout the entirety of his rookie deal. Yeah. And I want to say the first year of his extension wasn't the worst, or maybe it was last season. I forget which one, but one of these recent years, he was scoring some touchdowns. So it's kind of I think Zeke also is in the conversation as well. I think those, at least for me, I think those are the first two names that come to mind.
The only question that I have with Zeke, though, is that he's had a number of great runs, but have those runs led to touchdowns by him? Because you got to remember too that Prescott has the ability to run as well, and they also have they also had weapons, which I think leads into my receiver thought, which would be Des Bryant.
Oh, is he active? technically.
Technically active at this point? Did he announce his retirement?
Is he? Did he announce retirement at all? I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, he may not be retired, but I don't think him not being on an active team. That could be an Adrian Peterson type situation.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the question. If we're looking for a guy that's tethered to an actual team, or guys that are free agents but haven't actually retired yet,
Mm-hmm.
Des Bryant did not play last year, but he is considered an active player on this list.
Well, by that token, though, Antonio Brown is technically an active player as well.
Right.
So I mean that it's kind of funky where the list shakes out. I almost want it to be segmented between guys that we know were on a team last year and guys that weren't on a team last year that could have retired but didn't. Like, because Adrian Peterson's obviously up there and Antonio Brown's obviously up there, but
I'm assuming. I don't really want to be. I don't want it to technically be a dead giveaway, but I'm assuming Justin had the player that's the answer for the receiving touchdowns. I'm assuming they have to be on a team this year. I would assume.
All right, I'll give you a hint. Both players are currently free agents.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That'll narrow it down a lot.
And this is assuming that Adrian Peterson is retired.
Assuming Adrian Peterson is retired.
Okay, I think I know who the receiving touchdown leader would be. At least I have my guess.
I think I got the rushing touchdown leader.
Shall we take turns?
Go for it.
So my receiving touchdown leader, in my guess, because he is a free agent, because he still hasn't signed, Julio Jones. He's got the longevity. He's been in the league since 2011. Had some great years. Granted, he did have some years recently where there weren't a lot of touchdowns, but I think at his peak, he was Matt Ryan's top target for a reason. If I had to guess, I think he's my guess for receiving touchdowns leader.
Julio Jones does have 61 receiving touchdowns career, but he is not the current receiving touchdown leader in the NFL.
Darn it.
Just because I think it's funny. Rushing touchdown leader is Cam Newton.
Wait, that might be...
It is funny because that is actually correct. Assuming that Adrian Peterson has retired, Cam Newton has 75 rushing touchdowns and is ahead of Todd Gurley, who has 67.
Wow, look at that. We got the top two right there, Rick.
There we go.
That's wild.
Third is Derrick Henry at 65, by the way.
Oh, that's fair. Where's Zeke on that list?
Zeke is Mark Ingram is fourth. Mm-hmm. Zeke is fifth with 56.
Yeah.
Wow. So we mentioned four of the top five there, actually.
Yeah.
Speaking.
So with two guesses each left, you guys got to get that receiver. Well, the receiving touchdown leader.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Larry Fitzgerald because he hasn't played since 2020.
Right.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's retired too, even though he's not officially retired. Otherwise, yeah, he would be. Again, this is like one of those weird ones where you have a couple guys at the top who haven't really played in a while.
Yeah.
They didn't retire, but for all intents and purposes, they're not on this list.
Right. Jurg, what do you think about adding a couple tight ends to the mix?
Honestly, I was thinking the exact same thing because I was trying to rack my head around receivers, and I'm like, you know what? I think we got to bring up a tight end or two here. I think a tight end has to be. I think a tight end might actually be the answer.
Well, I mean, Gronk just retired now, but I assume that he would be pretty high up on the list. He had 91, 92, I think was the going rate on ESPN or something like that. So
Gronk is 12th all time with 92, but he's not. Yeah, he's retired. He's not active. He would have been the answer had he not retired.
Right. So starting to think about contemporaries to Gronk. Tony Gonzalez was there towards the end of his career.
Right. This isn't my answer, but Jimmy Graham had a run. I don't know if he's still technically a free agent or waiting.
Wasn't he on Chicago last year? Or wasn't he signed to Chicago last year technically?
Was the last year 2020?
I think I picked him up 1 week in fantasy.
There you go. Well, they also had 75 tight ends, so you never know.
That's true. Yeah.
Cole Kmet never had a chance.
Neither did Adam Shaheen, but regardless. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's between Graham and Brown. It's between Jimmy Graham and Antonio Brown for me.
Yeah.
I just think that Antonio Brown, even though Jimmy Graham didn't have the performance numbers that he's had in the last couple of years because Brown missed part of the season or missed most of seasons, I'm almost inclined to say Jimmy Graham is the top.
It's also worth noting, Rick, like considering peak, like those are two guys who really peaked. Like when they were at their best, they were weapons, especially Jimmy Graham in his Saints days. Even with the Seahawks, as much as we've harped on that trade for Seattle, like Jimmy Graham did still mean a lot for that offense. So I'm willing to be I'm willing to make the other guess. We have two each left. So
here's the only other name that I'm thinking of potentially, Mike Evans.
Oh, but then Justin say it's a free agent. Mike Evans is on the Bucs.
Yeah, but I'm saying that if we ask this question again next summer, probably Mike Evans will probably be the answer.
Yeah,
I will say 3 of the top 4 guys are free agents. 3 of the top 4 current leaders in receiving touchdowns career are free agents.
So that's Brown or Graham. I'm gonna stick my neck out with Antonio Brown.
Yeah,
Antonio Brown is number 2 with 83 touchdowns. Actually, if he would have just stuck on the team for a couple more weeks, he might have actually passed that next guy.
That's true.
It was close.
He had to be Antonio.
He had to be Antonio.
Yep.
Well, then I think this definitely takes out Jimmy because Jimmy definitely doesn't have more than that. I don't think he has more touchdowns than Antonio Brown.
Think about it.
I'll make the guess, but I don't know.
Well, in New Orleans, Breeze was there. That was a big target for him. And who else was there in Seattle? Like I know they had Gresham, not Gresham, Curse and Lockett, but Graham was a pretty big target there too.
True, so, but maybe it's just based off feeling. Again, I'll make it my guess because I still have 2. But so I'll say Jimmy Graham. But that's a high number. I'm not saying Jimmy didn't get a lot of touchdowns, but that sounds like a lot. But I'll say Jimmy Graham.
That is a really high number, Jurg. And it is correct. Jimmy Graham currently has 85 receiving touchdowns. He is the number 1 all-time leading touchdown receiver in the NFL for active players.
Wow.
So, yes, he has number 3 and 4 were tied at 75 with Dez Bryant and Mike Evans.
Wow. Again, we named all of them.
Yeah.
Well, because, Graham had he had double-digit touchdown years almost every year in New Orleans.
True.
Mm-hmm.
So even in his peak, even if he was only catching 10 or 11, you're still adding that up. If he was there for 4 years, it's almost 40 touchdowns in New Orleans. That's half his total, basically. Yeah. So,
and he did play a couple seasons with other Hall of Fame quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. So
and Justin Fields.
He had a lot of catches, a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah. I forgot about the brief tenure in Green Bay, actually.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that. It's so weird to envision Jimmy Graham in a Packers uniform too. It's so strange.
That should have worked too. If Mercedes Lewis can catch some touchdown passes from Rodgers, like Jimmy Graham should have caught way more.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's see what his tenure was in Green Bay.
So. I will say this actually fun. Like I just remember when he did throw it. Mercedes Lewis was the first ever first round pick that Aaron Rodgers threw a touchdown to.
And what does that tell you?
That blew my mind away. Like, Are you kidding me?
That's insane.
Jimmy Graham's first season in Chicago, he actually had more touchdowns than both seasons in Green Bay combined.
I'm not surprised.
5 touchdowns in Green Bay.
Not shocking.
8 touchdowns in his first season in Chicago. 3
He had to have been there during like the end of the Mike McCarthy era at Green Bay because I feel like LaFleur would have been able to use Jimmy Graham.
2018, 2019.
Oh yeah, that was the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. He caught so many touchdowns in a Matt Nagy system. Let's just ruminate on that for a second here.
Do we want to guess how many double-digit touchdown seasons he had?
I would say 5.
I'm gonna say 6.
4.
Oh, okay.
4. 3 in New Orleans. 2012, he did have 9. So it was close. And then he had a 10 touchdown season in Seattle.
Nice.
2017.
How many tight ends can say they've played with Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's a cavalcade.
Touchdown in 11 straight seasons. It's also pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That's good. Hey, Jimmy Graham, underrated player.
Yep.
That's the Wayback Machine. I feel at some point we will have a throwback segment. I don't know if it'll be weekly but like we will at one point have a throwback segment where we are all just going to go back in time and we're going to pluck out one player we just remember from like the 2000s or the 2010s and be like, do you remember when so-and-so was killing it?
Oh God.
That'll be fun.
That'll be fun.
That'll be fun. I'm going to say this right away. Sometimes I'm not necessarily going to pull out a name because of stats. I'm going to pull out a name just for the name. I already have a name in mind that I want to pull out for that segment.
Of course you are. I already knew when the segment was coming up that you were gonna claim TJ Hushmanzada. I already knew you were gonna claim that.
How'd you know?
You like him.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that ends a round of trivia. Amazing work once again, Justin. On the fly too. Really was more impressive. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with those. But we're not done with the games, ladies and gentlemen, because we have all three of us here. Let's have a little bit of fun. We got a round of NFL Would You Rather. In this segment, as opposed to the trivia segment, Justin gives us a situation that either is currently happening in the NFL or could potentially happen down the line. And he asked me and Rick, gentlemen, which would you rather do, A or B? So let's see what he's got for us.
Wow. I have not missed those puns.
You know you did.
Yeah, okay.
Well, being as it has been now, we'll stick with some receiver questions. Now, assuming that you had the option to pick either one, who would you have rather drafted? Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase? Jared, you just look like you got hit like in the head with a bat. Like you were like, what?
They're so good.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, okay. Are we talking about drafting them into their current spots? Or are we talking about just drafting them in general?
Assuming you would have the same production, who would you want on your team? Let's say you're building a team.
Wow. Wow.
They both have the same upside, pretty much the same length of career left, similar height, similar distribution. They actually have a similar set of skills, I think, also going over the top, across the middle, really opening up that field. And they have the ability to do it all. They're just super overly talented players that are going to be really good in this league for a long time. But if you had to choose one, where are you going?
You're splitting hair. You're splitting the atoms at this point with who you're picking between the two of them, because those are two of the top 4 or 5, whatever you want to say, receivers in the league. And they're both supreme top. They're both going to break the bank, like literally break the bank when it comes to their contract extensions that are both going to be coming up here in the next. Justin Jefferson has 2 more years before his 5th-year option. Jamar Chase, this was just his rookie season. So God, the sky's the limit between the two of them. I don't think you could go wrong with either of them. I'm just going to go with, from what I saw from him this year, I'm going to rock with Jamar Chase. I think that, and the argument coming out that the Bengals should have gone with Penei Sewell in that draft. And to be fair, I was one of those people in mock drafts I was a part of. I had picked Penei Sewell to go to the Bengals. So I will openly admit that I didn't have them picking Jamar in any mock I did. But I understood it when they did. And you can see why, because Jamar Chase is like Justin Jefferson. Like here's the thing. When I say I'm going to go Jamar Chase over Justin Jefferson, nothing against Justin Jefferson, because that dude is absolutely scintillating and electric. But Jamar Chase this season, the impact he had immediately for the Bengals was, and to help them take it to the next level, because I think, and I know you can make the same thing for Jefferson, but there were some decent receivers already there for Cincinnati. And he immediately said, like, okay, I'm the number one. This is my team. And for him to have done that, especially after not playing the season before, basically, like, let's be real here. This kid came out, didn't play his last year, what would have been his last year in college, drafted top 5. And there was the things coming out in training camp that I forget what it was exactly. He was like having some issues.
Drops. He said that there was like a stripe on the ball in college, and he was struggling catching because he couldn't see the ball as well. And his hands were not being in the right. He had people were losing their mind. They were like, this kid is going to be a bust. They should have drafted a lineman. What are they doing? Yeah. I was one of those people. I'm not going to lie. I was like, receiver? Are you out of your mind?
And he buried it.
Bro just had knee surgery, dude, because you couldn't protect it. And
exactly.
listen, Jamar Chase was a great draft pick. And hopefully they address that offensive line issue. But
yeah, so I'm gonna just pick Jamar Chase because I think from what we saw year one from him, especially the Kansas City games, like he was a big reason why they were able to beat Kansas City both times, I feel. And, as we saw after the Super Bowl, if Joe Burrow had a couple more seconds, Jamar Chase had Jalen Ramsey beat. Bengals could have won the Super Bowl on a Jamar Chase touchdown caused by his amazing, ability to break away from the top corner in the game. So I'm going to go with Jamar Chase.
Look, I mean, I agree with you. You can't go wrong with either one of them. And I think, you look at the pre-draft measurables for both those guys, and they both were sub 4.35 40 times. I think Chase was a little faster than Jefferson was. Jefferson has the height and has like the hand size on Chase, but Chase had him beat vertical jump and broad jump easily. And so I think if you're looking for what makes the best fit. And I think Chase does make the best fit in a number of scenarios, but I'm going to stick my neck out here and I'm going to take Jefferson. I think for me, the fact that Jefferson had another year in the NFL, kind of helps me out because I look at when Jamar Chase couldn't come out of LSU because he was too young. And then the pandemic hit and he didn't even play in 2020. While he was assured you're going to be a top 5 pick, who's to say that, that 1 year helped or hindered him in either way? So, I mean, for me, I think Jefferson's consistency and continuing to play no matter what kind of gives me a little more space. I mean, don't get me wrong. Chase is a phenomenal athlete. I also happen to think the guys who are a little taller can last a little longer in the league, but it's 1 inch. You're literally doing, splitting hair, like you said, Jurgen. I think for me, Jefferson has a much more proficient ability to catch football because of that hand size. He's not going to burn you, but he's going to be consistent, whereas Chase is your home run threat. But how many times are you going to have a 3rd and 22 where you need Jamar Chase to go 25 yards? Or if you want Justin Jefferson to make that first down catch or that second down catch, he's going to be there. Chase will probably be there too, but I think Jefferson's a little more apt towards that kind of route running ability. So for me, you can't go wrong with either one, but I would take Justin Jefferson just because of the fact that I like the height and I like the hand size. I think that will lead to a better career for him, in the long run. We can have this debate 15 years from now, and Chase and Jefferson will probably be the top 2 receivers of this generation of football. I think there's no question about it. But I think it's going to be, we have to get to that point first, and who knows what the teams are going to be. Maybe Jefferson's not in Minnesota for much longer. Maybe he goes somewhere else. That's a possibility too. Or Chase and Burrow are together. Maybe Jefferson wants to go there and play with the LSU tandem, and they have LSU North and Cincinnati, which would be insane. So, I mean, there's always a thought. So
Jefferson has said he's more than willing to play with Jamar Chase once again, and I think the two of them, unlike what happened with Jarvis and Odell, I think the two of them would actually make something out of the situation. I think the two of them would be, and especially if it's with Joe Burrow, we'll say this: if someone's leaving their team to go to the other guy's team, we know who would be leaving. So we'll leave it at that. I will say, if there's one thing that this Would You Rather accomplish, it's making 30 other fan bases just be in tears that, dang it, we don't have either of these guys.
Well, I mean, 29. The Rams have Cooper Kupp.
True. 29.
So, I mean,
listen, there's a lot of fan bases now that are very happy with their current receiver corps. There's been a lot of movement this year.
Oh, very true. I just say the number generally because, Cooper Kupp's amazing. Devontae Adams is great. Tyreek Hill, of course. So maybe you -3 there. But a lot of other teams, your receiver's good, but not Jamar Chase good, not Justin Jefferson good. I mean, is your receiver Chase Claypool good? Is he top 3 in the league good? Who knows? Who knows?
Well, I mean, it's also you got to look at the ebb and flow of the league because the league at one point had Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne on the same team in Indy with Peyton Manning, and ironically enough, they didn't win that many Super Bowls as you would expect with that trio there. So maybe it's a case where because Burrow's a little bit different, than Manning, obviously a little younger, a little more apt to running the ball, a little bit more scramble out of the pocket. It changes the way the dynamics are on defense for these teams. So. Yeah, if you pair them all together, it's huge. But of course, Minnesota's still got Adam Thielen, who's another great receiver. Buffalo's got Stephon Diggs, and we mentioned Gabriel Davis a couple weeks back. You mentioned Tyreek Hill. There's a lot of excellent receivers that are out there, and there's Christian Kirk. Yeah. So
then there's Christian Kirk.
And then there's Christian Kirk. Yes.
I mean, I will say this, and I'm not joking when I say this. if you ask me the most influential wide receiver of the last decade, I would answer Christian Kirk.
Oh, it's Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk has become, and this is going to date all of us, but he has become the Kurt Flood of this generation. Because of Kurt Flood, there's free agency everywhere. That's the biggest thing. Christian Kirk has become that kind of a trendsetter in pro sports. I think you're going to see it across all sports now.
We will. I'm not joking. Like we have fun on the show. We always have a good time with stuff. I'm not joking. We will do a deep dive into Christian Kirk and that contract one of these days, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to do it, and we're going to have a fun time. It's going to be a whole hour just talking about the repercussions of that deal.
Well, we'll have a wide receiver show, I'm sure.
Yes, I mean this was a wide receiver segment. This is a preview of that, ladies and gentlemen. So that was the first one. Do you have another Would You Rather, Justin, or are we moving on?
Plenty. We can keep going if you guys want.
Well, we will get to the division at some point, so I would say one more. I think one more should be good.
Yeah.
All right. So here's a question: should I give a spoiler question, or should I stay with receivers?
Which do you think will the
what?
Oh, spoiler for our division.
Wait, that's the question.
It'll be a spoiler for today's episode, actually.
I mean, let's tantalize the people. Why not?
All right. So, I'm gonna reveal one of my picks, and I love this year the Minnesota Vikings in a weak NFC conference. I think that they are absolutely going to get a wild card spot. There's not really a lot of teams that are going to compete. And if you are a team in the NFC, who would you rather play? The New Orleans Saints or the Minnesota Vikings? In the playoffs.
In the playoffs?
In the playoffs.
Well, I think for me, the real question, the real codification for me is who's hosting the game.
Well, I'm going to assume both teams are wild cards. I don't have either one of them winning their division. But,
So assume we're one of the division winners.
I'm assuming they're on the road. But who would you rather come to visit?
I would rather have New Orleans come to visit me. And I think my reasoning for it is that the playoff caliber of the two quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins and Jameis Winston, I think for me it trends better to my fan base rattling Winston and getting him off of his game because we know he can be a turnover machine, whereas Kirk Cousins has used that as fuel to kind of, you like that sort of thing. I feel like for me that's kind of a case where and granted, Michael Thomas versus Justin Jefferson. That's what you're going to have to go off with as your number one pick. I would rather try and shut down Michael Thomas and have Chris Olave try to beat me than I would shut down Justin Jefferson and have Adam Thielen try and beat me. I'd rather have the unproven guy try and make a name for himself when I know that I could probably take him out as well. I would rather have New Orleans come because if the roles were reversed, I would rather go to Minnesota because New Orleans is just going to be too tough a place to play.
Right.
But if they're coming to me, I want the Saints coming to me.
So you don't believe in that Saints defense?
I believe in the Saints defense enough that I can get away with a 13-10 win at home.
You're going to get a 13-10 win against Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, all these Jarvis Landry.
Well, my team won the division for a reason. I'm going to assume it's because of great defense. So I'm going to assume that my team can
It'll depend on who they play. I'm not saying necessarily, but just random, you're a home team, whoever you match up against, who would you rather play? And I'm going to play devil's advocate if Jerg picks the Vikings because they have a high-powered offense. They have they're improving getting younger on their defense. Excuse me. So they're both up and coming teams in my opinion.
Yeah. So to summarize, if Rick wants to see one of them, he wants to see the Saints come marching in to his home arena. So
I don't want to have any Viking claps in my my home playoff game. No, thank you.
Skol.
Yeah.
So I will go with the Minnesota Vikings. I would rather see them because as long as I'm not the Saints as that home team that they're facing by some hook or by crook, at the end of the day, boys, death taxes and the Minnesota Vikings are going to miss a field goal when the time expires to help me win that game. Rick, it's about the playoff demons. And while it's happened to the Saints a lot recently, there is no team. Well, maybe the Falcons. There is no team in the NFC with greater playoff demons right now than the Minnesota Vikings. I know if it comes down to the final field goal, I'm going to win that game. So please give me the Minnesota Vikings, and I will enjoy and revel in the heartbreak of them once again.
I will say, the last playoff game where it came down to a score, they won. That miracle in Minneapolis where
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's against the Saints. If I'm not the Saints, I'm okay.
You know what the worst part about that is?
What?
You know what the worst part about that is?
I'm right.
The feeling you just brought up in Minnesota, because their kicker is Greg Joseph, who's from South Africa, which is where Gary Anderson was from. And back in '98, when they were 15-1 and he missed that kick, I mean, look, the Blair
40
Walsh
chess.
The Blair Walsh kick is one thing, but you want to bring up Gary Anderson now you're banned from the state of Minnesota for that.
All due respect to hockey in Minnesota, because Minnesota is an amazing hockey town. I would actually love to go watch like a game there, either the Minnesota Wild or the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Shout out NCAA Frozen 4. My heart's not breaking if I'm not allowed to be in the state of Minnesota. You know,
No.
Just saying. I'm just saying. My heart's not breaking.
Blackhawks fan, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and we own them in the playoffs for a while now, so they wouldn't want to see Big Brother come to town anyways. So I'll personally pick the Vikings. In all seriousness, like yes, there is the difference between sound. I will say, like, while the Vikings defense is younger, I think there are areas in them that you can get at after them, especially defensive back. Like those DBs are young; they need to grow up fast, and their only veteran there is Patrick Peterson. And let's be honest here, he's the equivalent on certain possessions of a corpse. So I will trust my offense to be able to go past that Minnesota secondary with ease. So that's part of the reason. But once again, last second field goals, I know it's in my favor, so I'm not stressing that at all. So that was absolutely outstanding. Thank you for the Would You Rathers, Justin, and a bit of a preview, like he said, to a future episode, okay, next week when we talk about the NFC North and what we think of that division. But we are sticking to the AFC here on this episode. We're going to talk about the AFC North in the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, NFL divisional breakdowns. Of course, like I said at the top of the show, we're going to go through the league for the rest of this summer. We're going to go division by division, what our expectations are. And at the end of it all, after those 8 episodes, we're going to have another episode where we give you our full, what our playoff seeding would be, our first seed, who are our wild cards, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we're going to do there. But that's way in the future. And if that's its own episode, technically after this, we'll be a third of the way done with it. So here we go, boys. Accomplishments aplenty here. So let's get straight to it, guys. The AFC North is one of the more competitive divisions in football overall. I think we know the top 2 divisions, especially the number 1 division that'll take that, that we'll cover weeks from now. But I think the AFC North can be a very hyper-competitive division this year, considering the teams that are there. Now, the last couple of weeks, we've kind of started with the bottom of the barrel, ironically, with the divisions. I want to start closer to the top. So, Rick, I'm going to throw it to you first. Obviously, I think the biggest storyline in this division, it's going to be all about the Cincinnati Bengals. They made that run to the Super Bowl. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They upset the number 1 seeded Tennessee Titans, which, let's be real here, Tennessee losing against the number 1 seed was not that surprising. The Cincinnati Bengals making it to the Super Bowl, that was big for them. And I think it showed the potential of what they could be. But I think it also forced them to make more moves this offseason than I think they would have had they just made the playoffs and been a one and done. So with that in mind, Rick, what are your expectations for the Bengals and their chances of, I'm not going to say going back to the Super Bowl. I don't think it's fair to put that expectation on a Super Bowl champion or Super Bowl runner-up. But what should the people realistically be expecting from this team come 2022?
I think first and foremost, I think what you want to see if you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan is to have Joe Burrow stand up in the pocket a little bit more. You want to have him kind of have a little more time to throw, and that's why they added the guys they added. They added Ted Karras and Lyle Collins and Alex Kappa to kind of shore up that offensive line. I think that was a huge for them because Burrow was sacked nearly 80 times last season and somehow still had some wherewithal to lead them to the Super Bowl and lead them within a drive of winning the whole thing. So I think that was significant, but you can't rely on that. You can't win from being on your back the whole time. So I think adding those guys was huge for them. I think what also helped them out was that they kept a lot of their defensive players. They kept Clark Harris. They kept B.J. Hill. Jesse Bates, Eli Apple. They kept a lot of their secondary. Now, some of those guys had question marks to them. We understand that. I mean, you put up the best corner in the world against Cooper Kupp, and he's going to have his struggles. I think that's fair to say. Eli Apple is not there, but the fact of the matter is he's still serviceable in some way. Cincinnati also did well in the draft, too. I mean, adding Cam Taylor-Britt and Daxton Hill, they went a lot of defense, I think, was huge. I think it really kind of helped them understand what they need and where they need to go. I think for Cincinnati, this is a good year. This is a good team, a good young team. Zach Taylor finally has a good spot. I'm excited to see where they go next year. I'm excited to see kind of how they manufacture more wins and where they take this momentum going forward. I really think it's going to be a good year for them.
More than fair. And, you talk about the additions that this team made. I think obviously the offensive line was a big thing. And really, it was the offensive line that needed work the most, because you look at the skill position group with this team, you don't need to do much to a wide receiving core of Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, right? There's Jamar Chase again. Joe Mixon is a very talented running back, top 5, top 6 in the league, and a very underrated backup running back, I believe, in Samaje Perine, who is a really good complement to the skill set that Joe Mixon brings. So it just had to be all about the offensive line. And of course, worth mentioning, they brought in Hayden Hurst. I think that was a really great veteran pickup for them as well for tight end, replacing Uzoma. So when you look at what this team had to focus on, and again, I've said this before, I like when teams try to take advantage in their championship windows. The Bengals believe they have a window now because of Jamar Chase and because of Joe Burrow. I like it when teams try to take advantage of their time in that window. And Justin, you had mentioned it before, and like the hope that they did solve it. How much more confident are you in this Bengals offensive line compared to what last season's Bengals offensive line was?
Well, compared to last year, you have to be more confident. I think they have better overall players, like proven players. So, I mean, it's more of a question of can they put it all together, because, offensive line is a cohesive unit. So, like, you have to play to the strengths of your teammates. You can't just say, all right, this is a plug and play guy, we're good. No, it's a team sport, and you got to, hope you get that offensive line, in motion before the season starts. So, listen, if they can do half as good as what everyone expects them to do this year, they're going to be a better team. They just are. I mean, I can't imagine Joe Burrow with protection now slinging the ball left and right. I mean, he's got Jamar Chase, who's finally got a year under his belt. He's got the experience. He really started to come on towards the end of last season, if you guys remember. It wasn't bad in the beginning, but he really, really started to come on at the end. T. Higgins also started to gel better with Jamar Chase on the field towards the end of the season. And Tyler Boyd is just a cleanup guy. Joe Mixon will be healthy at the beginning of the year. They have so much now that this offensive line is going to help, that their offense should really be like, if not top 5, then the top offense in the league. I'm really expecting a lot of big things from this team now. So it's going to be exciting to watch.
I think for me too, two of the big guys that I'm looking at that are kind of the unsung or the underrated guys that I'm looking at now. One is Javon Hiley, who's a guy that was undrafted that they picked up from Coastal Carolina, because Coastal Carolina's offense in college the past couple of years has been off the wall insane. We're going to talk about Baltimore in a little bit, but they picked up their tight end Isaiah Likely, who I think is going to be a stud. But I think one of the big keys as well is that now that Uzama is gone, and you mentioned Hayden Hurst, this is a real chance for Joe Burrow to find another one of his favorite targets, because they have Thaddeus Moss on their team as well. Randy's kid needs to kind of now make a play to prove why he should belong in the league. And I think this is going to be a big step forward for him too. To add a second tight end like that to the Hayden Hurst combo with all that offense, it gives Burrow another weapon to fire to. And I think it's really going to help out with him, because, you can swing out to Mixon from the backfield or Perine, but if you've got guys that are capable pass catchers down the field like Moss or Hurst or even a Hiley, you're going to have a lot of fun. I think for Burrow, it's going to be a lot of fun this year for his offense. I think we talked about it. It's all about standing up in the pocket. I look at their defense, and while they didn't do a lot, I think, in free agency, aside from, bringing in the guys that they had, last year, Larry Ogunjobi, who they lost, that's going to be a significant little loss for them, I think, because I think it's going to be a case where they need BJ Hill to step up a lot more on that defensive end side, because, again, you can win games, you can score as many points as you want, but you got to be able to stop the other team. And so Cincinnati, we'll see if they're able to do that. And I think that's going to be a significant key. And again, while I love that secondary, I love what they added in the draft with Cam Taylor-Britt and Daxton Hill. I think it's going to be a true testament to see them try and go up against some of the stronger receiving duos or receiving cores that they have, because their schedule is tough. I mean, you're talking about Miami, you're talking about New Orleans, Tampa, Kansas City at some point. You're going to have untested, unproven rookies trying to go up against Juju Smith-Schuster or Mike Evans. It's going to be a slogfest for them going forward.
Oh, absolutely.
It's weird that you mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster and Mike Evans in the same sentence.
No, I feel kind of gritty about it myself, but
Hey, it happens. I mean, I think you guys said it best. I think the question will be, what can the defense do? It'll be interesting to see if maybe DJ Reader can take a step up from when he signed with the team a couple years ago. His first season with Cincinnati, he only played in 5 games. Second season, a lot more there for them. He only missed 2 games last year for the Bengals, which is big. Maybe if he can try to fill up the place for Ogunjobi, I think that would be big for them if him and Hill can play together. That pass rush with Trey Hendrickson, he proved that he was worth the contract that they had signed him to, so they'll hope that they could get another performance out of him like that. I think you said it best, Rick. At the end of the day, that's kind of my thing, very similar to the Minnesota Vikings. Funny enough, AFC and NFC North teams with these connection points. It's a young secondary, and you want to see what they could do. I actually wouldn't be surprised personally, and again, this would be if they really go for an all-in push. I could see if a notable corner becomes available at the deadline, I think the Bengals should be one of the first teams that go after the guy. Is my opinion about it, because you still have Joe Burrow for a couple more years on his rookie deal, and Jamar Chase is still going to be on his rookie deal. I think there is a case in the world where I'm not saying a top corner is going to be made available. I don't think that's going to be the case. Teams are keeping their top corners and paying them, but if that next tier guy can become available around the trade deadline, I could see the Bengals making a run at a guy and giving up some draft capital for that, because they're in a mode now, they have a window here for themselves, and you want to try to take advantage of that. So Cincinnati Bengals for sure are going to have a real case to potentially go on a repeat run this year. We'll wait and see. But it is going to be a tough division, and potentially tough, depending on how things break for some of these teams, could go. I think there's a lot of different ways we could talk about this division. Let's not waste any time. Let's just bring up this team, because we can either spend 5 minutes talking about them or 15 minutes talking about them. And it all depends on one position for this team, the quarterback. The Cleveland Browns, I think, are the biggest enigma of what this upcoming season could be in the NFL, because it's all about, is Deshaun Watson going to be able to play football this season? Now, from everything that we are assuming to this point, it's still very much up in the air. We have talked about the Deshaun Watson situation prior on this channel, and we've stated our thoughts on what we think could happen. All intensive purposes and reports, the idea is that the NFL does still likely want to suspend him for most likely just this upcoming season. So there's 2 ways of thoughts to operate this, guys. It's that Watson's going to miss the whole season, or he's going to actually be able to play this season. I don't know if there's an in-between there. If there is, and you guys want to talk about it, more than welcome to, but it's going to be interesting. The Browns have a relatively light schedule, just for purposes off the top. They face the Panthers, they face the Jets. Sorry, fellas. They face the Steelers, and they face the Falcons. Then it starts to pick up a little bit. They got games against the likes of the Chargers, the Patriots. They got the Ravens and the Bengals, the Dolphins and the Bills. That's all back-to-back, by the way, what I'm saying. Finally, they take on the Buccaneers Thanksgiving weekend, and then they finally get a reprieve with the Texans, but then it's right back to the Bengals, Ravens, Saints, the Commanders, future NFC East champion, according to one of us, and the Pittsburgh Steelers to finish off the year. So that's very much a gauntlet of teams that you have to go through, and you need a real quarterback to get you past that schedule, to say the very least. So just, I'm going to throw it over to you. We've talked about the Browns a couple times this offseason. They were able to steal Amari Cooper from the Dallas Cowboys, essentially. They still got that 2-headed rushing attack. That defense has their pieces locked in. There are things to like about this team. And it really does genuinely suck that their biggest story with their biggest player has to be off the field. What are your thoughts about Cleveland going into this 2022 season and Deshaun Watson as a whole, just in relation to the team?
Well, I'm operating completely as if he's not going to be here this year. I made a statement at one point in the beginning that when they traded for him, assuming he was the same guy that he was last year, they should be a top team in the league. But they're not. And I mean, look, even with decent quarterback play last year and all of those pieces, they didn't make the playoffs. They were 8-9. So with no quarterback there, I don't see it being a fun season in Cleveland. Assuming he ever comes back, I don't see a lot of great things in their future. Maybe if he comes back and he's good and 3 seasons and a whole bunch of lawsuits, doesn't screw him up. And you got to remember, they also don't have any draft picks for the next 3 years. So I don't see them doing very well. I actually have them at 6-11 this year. They got a tough division. They're going to play 3 other good teams, and I know you're going to say something about the Steelers, but they still got a nasty defense over there. So yeah, I don't really see very many positives for their season this year.
No, I don't blame you, because that out of division schedule is extremely difficult. Miami, Tampa Bay, like
The Jets.
They're there are tough teams in there aside from even their own division foes. And you're right, like Pittsburgh. I mean, we'll get to Pittsburgh here in a moment, but the Steelers, for what you want to say about them, and I've been trying to predict their end of this current run for a while now. Mike Tomlin teams don't die. Like it's very much just the DNA that exists there. So, but I think you're right. I think we need to operate with the assumption that they are not going to have Deshaun Watson this season. I think that's the only fair way to look at what the Browns will be this season. So I want to kind of shift a little bit to you, Rick, with this question. So I've had this conversation with other friends of mine on other podcasts, actually. Baker Mayfield, of course, we know the situation there. Now, highly unlikely that they'll be able to mend that bridge. As I have personally said, I believe they took an atomic nuke to that bridge with Baker at this point. I don't see him coming back. But I personally had a conversation that if Baker is dealt to the Panthers, could it be a situation where maybe the Panthers would unload Sam Darnold to the Browns? And it's just an idea I had, because they're both on their 5th-year option. You exchange them, it's very similar cap hits for both teams. So I don't know if maybe you want to play with this whole Sam Darnold thing, or even just what they have on the roster currently, which is Jacoby Brissett and Joshua Dobbs.
Okay, but why? So if you're Cleveland, you're not going to keep Baker Mayfield as your starting quarterback, because you absolutely killed that relationship. You buried it so far in the deep end of MySpace that you can't even retrieve it at this point. I think the matter of fact with Watson being what it is, I mean, I knew for a fact that this Watson deal was going to be rough. Brissett's not a bad quarterback to have. I mean, yeah, if you want Sam Darnold in there to possibly have him be the backup, sure. But why would Cleveland even consider taking Sam Darnold if only to become the 3rd string next year? I mean, I don't see that being a thought process. What I like in this too is back in 2017 when the Browns took on Brock Osweiler's contract for a 2nd-round pick, they spent basically about $16 million for a 2nd-round pick, because that's what Osweiler's bloated contract was. Look, I have the Browns going 4-13 this year, not 6-11. I have them being very bad because of the unpredictability of that quarterback scenario. Just really throws me for a loop. And no matter how good the defense is, that offense needs a lot of help. I get it. You added Amari Cooper, but at the same point in time, look at who you're facing. I mean, look at the teams that are going to be going on defense that are going to be hungry to face you on a consistent basis, because aside from Amari Cooper, is Donovan Peoples-Jones going to take a step forward? I don't really know. Is David Njoku going to take a step forward? Maybe. He got a big deal. He got a big contract. And then on defense, you've got arguably maybe 2 of the guys that I look at and say, how are they going to coexist in Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett on the defensive line? To me, they're the same mold. So they're both going to try and go for the quarterback, and I think they're going to get in each other's way. And I think this is the worst case scenario for Cleveland, in that they took on a big contract. They gave Watson a huge deal because they believe in him, but there's so many variables that they forgot about that now they're left in the smoldering ruins of what was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And they've got nothing to show for it. So I think this is going to be a very, very rough year for Cleveland. It's not – this is the one time where I'm going to say it too. A Cleveland coach is going to get fired at the end of this year, and it's not going to be his fault. But I think Kevin Stefanski is going to not really know what to do, and the ownership is just going to get a quick hook, because it's been so much losing in Cleveland, and you were so good the past couple of years, but the ownership got in the way, and now they're going to try and clean house. That's what I think. I think Stefanski, as good as the goodwill was last year, I think it's gone after this year. Not because of what he's done, but because the ownership wants a change, and they need to have a change. So it sucks.
Do you think there's a way that he can keep his job?
Yeah, I do. I do think so.
My bad to interrupt. Aside from making the playoffs, because we're all agreeing that they're not going to make the playoffs, is there a way that they can miss the playoffs and keep his job?
Yeah. I mean, I believe there's a way he can. But again, I mean, he's going to have to pull a rabbit out of his hat here. Brissett's going to have a 3,500-yard season, or they're going to have to mend that bridge with Baker Mayfield. He's going to have to play in order for it to happen. But I just don't see it. I mean, I think he's in the worst possible case scenario for him. And again, he's just kind of the bystander here, watching the whole world burn around him, trying to figure out what to do. So, but it's really, really difficult. It really is.
Yeah, I don't blame him whatsoever. I'm with you guys. I think Cleveland, because of this, and again, assuming Deshaun is going to be out the entire season, which I think he probably will be at this point, they're gonna plummet to the bottom of the division. And I mean, hey, the Texans are going to be happy about it. they're going to get a really good draft pick out of this. So the Houston Texans rebuild is going to benefit very much from this. And at the end of the day, Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski, sucks to see. Probably not going to send Christmas cards to each other this year or well wishes at Thanksgiving.
No, I would say not. No.
There's no coming together and singing Kumbaya in this case.
None of that.
None of that. That sucks. Yeah. Poor Cleveland. The fans don't deserve it, but man, there's just something wrong. Anyways, let's move from a city that is perpetually just sad to a city that perpetually has success, even when we expect them not to, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, of course, last season was the swan song of Ben Roethlisberger in the NFL, which probably should have had a swan song 2 to 3 seasons before that, but he grabbed on and stayed as long as he could. The Steelers surprised a lot of people. They went 9-7-1 last year and made the playoffs. Now, a lot of changes to this roster the last couple seasons. A lot of stalwarts on that team are gone. And in that place, you have a young quarterback of the future that you hope, if he could really show something, it could be something special. Of course, I am talking about Mitch Trubisky and or Mason Rudolph. But no, in all seriousness, they drafted Kenny Pickett in the first round this past year. And also, I forget if he was a late round pick or if he was an undrafted pick. But out of South Dakota State, Oladukin, that they got
7th round pick. Yeah,
I'm a very big fan of him as just a backup quarterback, and I hope that he could just be the Steelers' backup quarterback for a decade. With that last name, I hope he does. Now, in all seriousness, moving on, the Steelers, we know that there's a little bit of talent there for the most part. You got Trey Edmonds and Najee Harris there, as well as Benny Snell Jr. with the running back core, a various array of weapons at running back that's at the disposal for eventually Kenny Pickett, assuming he gets to play the season, which even if the season becomes lost for the Steelers, like he will have to get his curtain call at some point. Then you have the receiving core. They added George Pickens in the draft, which is a very, very much applauded pick by the Steelers. It was a great pick for them. For that, you have I was about to say Juju, but you have Deontay Johnson, who's a really great, has been an underrated receiver for the last couple of years. I think a lot of people are expecting big things out of him. And you have a guy who calls himself a top 3 receiver in the league in Chase Claypool. Confidence. You have a offensive line that is still not the best it can be, but it's better than last year. I want to say, I think at least on paper, there are some improvements. They made a couple of additions in this past draft, getting guys like Trenton Scott and Jordan Tucker and Jake Dixon. So 3 rookies coming into that offensive line room. And then you have the defense that Justin said himself, that defense still has talent. It still has the best pass rusher in the game in TJ Watt. It has Cameron Hayward. You mentioned him before, Rick. Larry Ogunjobi is there. Like Devin Bush, if he can come back, that defensive back crew is pretty solid, with Minkah Fitzpatrick, Miles Jack, linebacking core. That defense has talent. So, Rick, can the Steelers surprise us all again this year? Like, how close can they realistically be to a wild card spot?
This team is the ultimate enigma to me. They really are, because you expect that when you lose your franchise quarterback in Roethlisberger, that you're going to take an immediate downturn, and their defense is still probably going to be top 10 defense in the league because of how the impact players are. But the quarterback room is so unsettled because you still have Mason Rudolph, who was the starter in waiting because he was the backup for many years. They added Trubisky, and then they rode the hot hand in the draft, and they went with their homegrown guy, Kenny Pickett. But I don't know who's going to start week 1. That's the big thing. I don't know. This is the team that, if you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, since 1969, I want to say, they've only had 3 head coaches: Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. Can you believe that there's odds on Tomlin being fired after this season? He's got 16-1 odds on being fired. It's tied with John Harbaugh for like one of the middle, but it's still pretty high for a team that doesn't fire their head coaches. He doesn't have a quarterback, really. He doesn't know who his quarterback is. He's got Najee Harris. He's got weapons on the wide receiver core. He's got Pickens. He's got Deontay Johnson. He's got Pat Freiermuth there as a tight end. So he's got strong players there, and Connor Hayward as well. This is the team that's an enigma. This is the team that's a real – they're going to surprise. I think they're going to be a surprise because of how they're going to do, but I don't necessarily know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. They're one of the teams when I was looking at the schedule, I was tossing up with, are they going to be a good team that's going to miss the playoffs, or are they going to be a bad team that's going to miss the playoffs? And I don't really know. They're a mystery to me. They really are. And it's a great defense. It's a big question mark on the offense for me.
More than fair, because you said it yourself. The pieces are there defensively. And Mike Tomlin, if they somehow don't go below 500 this season, I think I just put him in the Hall of Fame at that point, because how would this team not go below 500 if he's able to put together that kind of coaching job? He would say something to say the very least. Justin, unlike a lot of the teams that we talked about the last couple weeks, where there are some pieces there, but you're still waiting, and of course with Kenny Pickett waiting in the wings, this isn't necessarily a case where it's like you just look for the young players. I mean, the Steelers would like their young pieces to perform, but this is still a team that, as long as Mike Tomlin is there, like, he's going to instill in them the belief that they can make the playoffs. Like, so Steelers fans are going to have expectations. Like the Yinzers are certainly going to expect a lot, and there will be heavy criticism when they don't perform. But what should the realistic stance on the Steelers be for this upcoming season? And like what is there to look forward to? Like what chances does that offense have of being really good this season?
Rick is right. I don't know how to guess on this team. I really don't, because I mean their defense is so strong, and I mean they got to work on their offensive line a little bit. I think they addressed it a bit this offseason. They still have Najee Harris, and I will say I got a bone to pick with you. You forgot to mention, Rick, top 3 receiver in the league, Chase Claypool. All right.
No, I didn't forget to mention him. There's a reson why I didn't mention him, because
purposely, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You just want to spite him. He's going to show you, man.
I'm gonna have a bold prediction right now. Gunnar Olszewski is gonna have more touchdown catches than Chase Claypool this season.
It's not super bold.
I
I don't.
No, okay, you're right. Larry Fitzgerald will have more than Chase Claypool this season.
I don't know. Listen, I'm not gonna say anything. I admire. You should, as a pro, you should have that mentality. He's not a top 5 receiver in the league. He's not even the best receiver on his team. But
he's not a top 5 receiver in his division.
Yeah,
no, he's not.
So yeah, look, they're super hard to predict. They should win all like any game that you think might be like a toss up. I'll just give right away to coaching. So like maybe they steal a game or two in their division, but for the most part, it's hard to predict. I could see them going, hovering around 500. I could see them being a little worse. I don't think they're gonna like explode for like double-digit wins or anything, but I think unfortunately Mike Tomlin, his record will go will be tarnished, because he's going to lose to the fact that there's no such thing as 500 anymore. So I don't see them going 9-7, 9-8. I see them more as a 6-11.
What if he goes 8-1,
7-10? If he goes 8-1,
that's still above 500
in the Hall of Fame. No, it's not. It's exactly 500, and still in the Hall of Fame.
The tie counts as percentage points up above 500.
Whatever you say, man. Listen, it'll depend on Kenny Pickett. That's really what it is. Is Kenny Pickett going to come out and is he going to sling it? Is he going to be able to come out here and win them some games? Because listen, if you don't think that defense can account for 6-7 wins this year alone, then I don't know. You guys got to watch more football. You know what I mean? They have an excellent defense. They have an excellent running game. They're an old school football team. They should win some games, again, on coaching alone. So, yeah, I could see them, hovering around a wild card spot late in November. I don't necessarily see them snagging one, but they have a really good young defense. People forget also, that's a young team. That defense is young. So
their best players are still like below the age of 28.
They signed Miles Jack, and he's like 25, 26.
Like that, yeah.
Like they have a really good, really young team, and they're going to have a nasty defense for years to come. So they're either going to put all their eggs in the Kenny Pickett basket this year and see what they have, or they're planning on drafting a quarterback next year, and they'll move Kenny Pickett if he's got a decent season.
What I will say too, I think, thinking about it more, if they hold Mason Rudolph for draft capital, because at some point some quarterback's going to get hurt and you need a proven quarterback on your roster. If the Steelers have Rudolph and they trade him for like a third or a fourth round pick because some team needs a quarterback because of an injury, that's a smart idea. It's a smart way to kind of go about it because, I mean, again, look, they have 3 potential starting quarterbacks on their roster along with Oludokun. Fine. So 4, I guess, then, Jurg, for you. But Rudolph's probably the one they're going to move most likely. I think it would be interesting for them if they hold on to him, and then get rid of him in mid-year for a draft pick, because I don't think they're going to be of that mindset where they're going to look for a quarterback next year. I think they're going to look to maybe shore up that O-line, get one of the best tackles in the draft next year, whoever that is. But I feel like that's the thing is that you're going to tell me that you're going to get rid of Mike Tomlin after one sub 500 year that he's had 16 years, and this is his first sub 500 year when you haven't given him a quarterback to really work with. I don't know. To me, it's a little risky because then you release Tomlin to go wherever he wants to go, and he's going to end up coaching somebody to a Super Bowl again.
It's the Marvin Lewis question. I mean, it's a little different because I said Mike Tomlin has won a Super Bowl, but when was the last time they were relevant? They haven't made a Super Bowl since 2010.
Yeah, I mean,
how many chances are you going to give a guy that's not making any progress?
I will say, to be fair, the way that Marvin Lewis's tenure ended was them ultimately, I think, missing the playoffs. And like with Mike Tomlin, like Rick said, like that's a level of consistency, like not being below 500. I am usually the one to argue for firing a coach if they're just a mediocre coach for a while. But
Marvin Lewis, he never had a playoff win. He went to the playoffs for 8 straight seasons before he was fired. He changed football in Cincinnati. People forget they didn't even have legitimate practice facilities before he got there. He was a great head coach for what Cincinnati needed. He really brought that team into the future. That being said, again, it's what have you done for me lately? When was the last time the Steelers won a playoff game?
No, Justin, here's the thing. I agree. I have criticized the Steelers for the last couple of years, in part due to Mike Tomlin. But I also think this season in particular, they don't have a quarterback.
Well, but my issue also isn't necessarily Mike Tomlin. I mean, I think Mike Tomlin's an excellent coach. Again, Hall of Famer, in my opinion. He's an excellent head coach.
Yeah.
It's not his job to put players on the field.
No, it's not.
Lack of talent. There's a lot of questions.
I mean, I think there's a slight lack of talent on the offensive side, as to where I think, too, Cincinnati improved so much. They're kind of better on the offense in that regard.
Yeah, and no shot at the Steelers whatsoever. Like, again, this team will not die. Mike Tomlin will not die. You have to kill him, bury him, and just like that elephant that ironically stomped over that woman's funeral a couple weeks ago, you're gonna have to go to his funeral and make sure he's dead. That's what you're gonna have to do in order to guarantee that Mike Tomlin finishes below 500. Hey. I'm just spitting facts. That's how you need to ensure that Mike Tomlin is done. Like that's the only way you're going to guarantee that his team is below 500. So, and like you guys said, it's in part because of the Bengals, and it's also in part because of this final team. The final team in the AFC North that we're going to talk about is the Baltimore Ravens. Now, this team finished last season 8-9, but you got to remember they were injured to hell and back to start the season. They had no running backs essentially. The 3 of us were the Baltimore Ravens practice squad running backs, I think, at some point because of how bad the injuries were. And then when Lamar Jackson got hurt, it was lights out. It was tickets, to say the least. I think with the Ravens, it's interesting. So they dealt away Hollywood Brown, and that's going to bring up questions about, can someone step up to be the number 1 receiver? We spoke about it a couple weeks ago. The expectation is Rashad Bateman. He needs to be healthy, and he needs to really show up because this team needs him to show up, I think, more than ever this season. And there's just a lot of names on this roster that they're going to be very hopeful can potentially make an impact here. At the tight end spot, you had mentioned Isaiah Likely being one of the tight ends that they could hope to develop. Will he make an immediate impact this season? Who knows? I mean, crazier things have happened. But the safe assumption will most likely be that Mark Andrews and Nick Boyle will still be the main tight ends there. And the offensive line is still relatively solid, I think, if they could stay healthy, because I don't think he was injured last season, but I think the year before when they still had Orlando Brown Jr. Is when Ronnie Stanley got hurt. So maybe some concerns if injuries can bite you there again. And the defense, it's like traditional Baltimore Ravens defense. It's steady, it's stout. Not the names that it's had in years past. That's been a while, but the defensive back crew is it's very good. And they added what I think was a steal of a pick late in the draft in Jalen Armour Davis. I think he's going to be really good, personally speaking. The Ravens, I think we could all agree, the biggest challenger to the Cincinnati Bengals for the top of the division. I think it's going to be one of those two. Rick, I'm going to throw it to you first, actually, when it comes to the Baltimore Ravens. Just assuming that Lamar Jackson and their running backs don't have to go to the emergency room in week 1 of the season. And if they do, hopefully there's a Mount Sinai in Baltimore that they could go to if need be. But if they are healthy going into the season, will the Baltimore Ravens regain the AFC North crown? Because I think a lot of people firmly believe, had they been, at least if Lamar had been healthy, that they probably could have won the division last year.
No, it's not going to happen because of the fact that I think there's too many question marks with who Lamar Jackson's going to throw the ball to. There's been a lot of talk that I've seen in the past week about the Ravens adding Terry McLaurin from Washington, which, by the way, don't you even go near Terry McLaurin from Washington, Baltimore. And in addition, there's talk about them adding Josh Gordon from the Chiefs to kind of supplant and help out Rashad Bateman. I get it, they have Mark Andrews, and I get it that they have some running back core, but there's something different about Baltimore to me that I don't really see them having the success that you would think they would have based upon the guys that they added. Something just doesn't click in my head with how Baltimore has shaped their team this year, and I think it's going to be a surprising year for them in a negative way. I feel like they might have some problems on defense because as they have that typical style of defensive, players that they have Calais Campbell, they have Tyus Bowser, they have a very good defensive core on the secondary line. Something about it to me just doesn't add up. It's an intangible and it's an unjustifiable, but I can't really say what it is because I don't really know. But to me, I'm looking at Baltimore and I'm saying nothing about you really intrigues me. They're like a 5. Nothing about them really intrigues me. But they're there, so maybe we'll talk to them. Maybe we'll see what they have to say. And they'll either go to a 6 or down to a 4. But I don't really know where it's going to go, so do I shoot my shot? Or do I just pass the by and wait? That's kind of how I'm looking at Baltimore right now. And I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping maybe Justin can kind of guide me in one direction here, but as much as I am on the fence with Pittsburgh, I'm more so on the fence with Baltimore because I don't really know what I'm going to get from them. I really have no clue with them, honestly.
Well, let me just tell you from experience, gentlemen. Sometimes you could shoot your shot and it's going to completely airball. That being said, Justin, give us your analysis on the Baltimore Ravens for this upcoming season. I think Rick is right. I think just like the Steelers, there's a lot of questions with this team. But I'll say this, and maybe if you want to also tackle this portion of it. If Lamar Jackson can, because again, he got hurt last year. I think Lamar Jackson has proven to be a bit better of a passer than I think most want to give him credit for. Could this be Lamar Jackson's next masterful performance where he could guide this team to the AFC North division? Because if he does, we got to reevaluate how we think about him. Because I know a lot of people agree, and I think all of us would agree. Very talented quarterback, obviously. I think if he could drag this team to the division like that might do it because he is. That's I think a next level task he's undertaking. So what can this Ravens Ravens offense look like to you in this next season, Justin?
The offense, listen, I think there's going to be parts where they struggle. They got rid of one of their top wide receiver in Hollywood Brown, but that being said, obviously they haven't really had a Lamar Jackson Rashad Bateman connection yet. I think I mentioned in an earlier episode they play 5 games together last year. With all the injuries. All of that being said, I could see the Ravens winning 13 games this year. I love what they did in the offseason this year. Yeah, you can make that face, Rick. They did a great job. What were their biggest holes last year? It was receiver, which they might not have addressed perfectly. The offensive line, which I think they addressed excellently, drafting Tyler Linderbaum. They signed some guys in free agency. And the secondary, which was banged up. They went out and they got Marcus Williams and they drafted Kyle Hamilton. They have an excellent team. They should be way healthier this year. They'll get Marcus Peters back. They'll have a healthy Marlon Humphreys. They should have a healthy Lamar Jackson. They should get all their running backs back and J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and all the guys that didn't really play well last year or didn't play at all last year. They were a top rushing defense in the league last year, the top rushing defense in the league last year in yards per game. They should be a really good team this year. And frankly, I don't think that they have the most difficult schedule. I mean, they play the Browns and the Steelers twice. That should be 4 games right there. You're telling me you can't see them sweeping both of those teams?
I honestly can't.
You don't think they're going to sweep both of those teams?
I don't think so. So here's my
AFC North is weird. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah,
AFC North is
You're
weird.
right. And I'm not saying it'll be competitive, but the Ravens should win all 4 of those games.
Should they? Yes. Will they?
It'll depend on the health of the team, for sure.
Right. I can't.
I'm picking the Ravens 4 out of 4 times.
The AFC North tends to cannibalize on itself, though. It really does. Like, these teams, you get one turnaround play, and granted, I mean, look at the rest of their schedule. Yeah, they have Miami week 2 at home. I get it. It's Miami, like coming off of an early. We'll see how they do. But then you got New England at New England, and then Buffalo at home. So your first 4 games are the Jets, which we know it's going to be a loss, and then Miami, New England, and Buffalo. I mean, and then you have to go to Tampa and to New Orleans.
Well, here's my question: do you think that they could split with the AFC East? You can go 2-2.
They could go. They could go 3-1. They could go 3-1.
They could go 3-1. Let's give them 2-2. I'm going to say they're going to sweep those 4 divisional games. Okay,
so that's 6 wins
there. Do you think they could steal one from Cincinnati?
I think so. If they're healthy, yes.
That's 7 wins. All right. Then they play the Giants at one point in the season.
Mm-hmm.
They play the Panthers. They play the Jaguars. They play the Falcons. I mean, 6 wins on top of that. That's another 4 wins right there. That's 10. You don't think that they could steal another win or 2 out of there? There's a chance that this is a top team in the league, just based on schedule and talent. It's not like they're all rookies either. They got some talented veterans there. Calais Campbell, he's old as sin, but he's a fantastic run stopper.
Old as sin, that's a good one.
He's an excellent player. They have good linebackers. They have great linebackers. They have Patrick Queen there. They have. Honestly, I can't even name all of the excellent players that they have. They have a good coach who's been there forever in Harbaugh. Why shouldn't they expect to win 13 games this year? Especially if, Lamar Jackson could be an MVP candidate like he was before he was injured. So the way he runs the ball, the way he could throw over the top with Mark Andrews, hopefully what's his name? Rashad Bateman is as talented as they think he is and can stay on the field with them. They really should be a contender this year. The only thing that's going to stand in their way is the Bengals. So we're going to see that they play the Bengals the last game of the season, which is going to be an excellent matchup, I think.
That could be for the division.
It could be for the division.
I tend to think that they might be looking for a receiver at the deadline potentially, just because I feel like they don't have anybody else beside Bateman that's a wide receiver.
But you know what? I'm surprised that now that more NFL teams aren't doing things like that. I think that the Bengals and the Ravens should be looking at the deadline. Look at what the Rams did last year. They said, "Fuck the picks." Excuse my language. Fuck the picks.
Swear jar.
And guess what? It worked out for them. It did. Why do they need those picks if it's going to make if it means they're going to win a Super Bowl? So if you wouldn't trade your first round pick for this year and next year for a wide receiver on an expiring contract, if you think that might put you over the top?
Wait, a first and a second next year? No, absolutely not.
Depends on the receiver.
Not to me.
You're telling me you wouldn't trade a first and a second for Mike Evans?
Nope.
I mean, I don't think Mike Evans would be dealt, but
no. I'm just saying. Let's say the Bucs are bad this year. They don't expect Tom to come back. Whatever, he breaks a leg and they don't think it'll heal right or whatever, and they don't want to pay Mike Evans next year. It's just a random scenario.
No, I was gonna say I actually have.
They're sellers on the.
Tom Brady breaks a leg. He's going to get another leg off the black market and just play with that instead, and still throw for 5,000 yards.
That might be true.
Point. Deebo Samuel is out there. You're not giving a first round pick if you're the Ravens for Deebo Samuel?
I think it could be worth it. I actually have a name, NFC West, Tyler Lockett. If the Seahawks are willing to deal him, Tyler Lockett to Baltimore.
DK Metcalf.
Ooh.
There are these guys out there.
Maybe.
For a team like the Ravens,
maybe.
Yeah, I think I like a first and a second, first and third. Maybe if you could swing it for like a guy like Lockett.
Absolutely.
I mean, DK would probably be like 2 firsts.
DK would be too much for a first and a second.
I would need the guarantee from him and his agent. Like, we got to negotiate an extension because I'm not going to trade 2 firsts for you, and you're not going to sign with my team immediately.
Right.
Yeah. Listen, of course, but these are guys that they're going to need to do what they can to get those guys in the door so that they have a chance to win a championship. They might not be enough, but based on their schedule and the things they've done in this offseason, I think they should absolutely be a contender for this division.
No, I think it's fair, and I think a lot of people would expect that from them being healthy. I personally expect that from them being healthy. I think the Lamar Jackson injury, we forget, like they were what, 7-4 when he got hurt last year.
At one point last year,
they were
even with Hollywood Brown dropping all those touchdowns.
Yeah, I think Lamar Jackson is really starting to prove to us like they should still get him a receiver, but I think he's proving that he can like have his moments where, all right, you don't have a receiver for me. I guess I just got to make this work, and he has so far, and we'll see how much further that could take them this season. Again, I think the biggest thing that we've said is that we hope that the Ravens and the Bengals will be active at the deadline. I think the Bengals for a corner and the Ravens for a wide receiver would be excellent. I think both those teams could definitely see that become a need for them overall, because I think it makes sense on both sides ultimately to potentially get those kinds of deals done. Even aside from that, I think everybody agrees that the Bengals and the Ravens are going to be the 2 top teams for the division this year. So that being said, let's rank them, boys. I don't know if you want to go 4-1, 1-4. I'll let you guys decide that. I'll start with you, Rick. What are your final division standings for the AFC North for the 2022 NFL season?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough, and I'm going to have to volley myself here and try and hunker down while Justin, gets pissed off at me. But here we go. Cleveland bottom 4-13. A lot of it has to do with the quarterback situation for them. It really does. Like there's no good quarterback there that you can say is either happy with the team or not facing sexual assault allegations. I mean, Jacoby Brissett's like a saint compared to everybody else, I guess. So, but regardless, 4-13. Pittsburgh, 6-11. It's Tomlin's worst year, and I think the majority of it is really growth for Pickett. They're a good defensive team, but I just don't think they have enough offensive firepower to match the defense, and I think they're going to get swallowed up. However, I have them splitting the series with Baltimore. I have Baltimore going 8-9 because I still have my reservations about this Ravens team. I do not really know if I can trust to have a full, healthy Lamar Jackson season. I don't know if I can trust that. I mean, I get it. They had so many injuries last year too. But something about the Ravens to me just doesn't really strike me as a contender this year. And again, it's not something I can put my finger on. It really isn't. Like, I can't tell you it's one thing over the other, but I don't feel confident ranking the Ravens that high. So to me, I have them 8-9. I have Cincinnati winning the division at 11-6. I'm trusting that the Bengals did enough in the offseason to kind of rebuild and revamp. And I think that they're the class of the division right now. I really do. The Ravens can challenge them, sure. And, a couple of games here or there could swing things. But there's something about this Ravens team that I just don't buy into. And I think something's going to happen where there's going to be a big issue come midseason with them. I can see them struggling out of the gate. I can see them struggling midseason. That 2-game stretch where they play Tampa on a Thursday night and then New Orleans the following Monday night could be a turning point for them, but I just don't know what it is. So to me, I can't trust it. I can't trust it. I think I also have Denver beating them at some point this season because I know they're playing. I have Denver beating them. And that might be because I have the AFC West going all 4 teams into the playoffs maybe. But regardless, I feel like I don't trust Baltimore. I really don't. That's hard to say because they are a very talented team, but I just don't trust them enough. So again, Cincinnati 11-6, Baltimore 8-9, Pittsburgh 6-11, Cleveland 4-13. The only team making it out of the division is Cincinnati, and I'm going to just duck and cover right now.
Before Justin goes, I'll let Justin finish up. I'll just give my 4 real quick. Yeah, the Browns are my 4th. Again, all due respect to Jacoby Brissett, but that team is just not for them this season. And I think at the end of the day, like this first season is going to be tough, and you're going to have to look to 2023 to maybe get some hope. And 2 years removed from football, Deshaun Watson is so much better than just 1 year removed from football, Deshaun Watson. So we'll see how that works. So I got the Browns there. I got the Steelers very close. I usually don't give records. I'll say the Steelers can maybe go like 7-10. I think like there's enough there. I think Mitch Trubisky starts. I think Mason Rudolph will show up randomly in one of these games and probably get sacked by Myles Garrett in one of the Browns games. And then Kenny Pickett's going to start almost the whole rest of the way. And then in the fourth quarter of the final game of the regular season, Chris Oladokun is going to get some playing time, and he will make his case as the future backup quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And supporting him in the stands will be Duck Hodges. As my second seed in the division, I have barely the Baltimore Ravens. But I'm not giving my full wildcard teams yet, but I think the Ravens are more than a legitimate contender. As of now, I'm leaning towards having them be one of my wildcards. So I think the thing is between the Ravens and the Bengals, I give a very slight edge to the Bengals because I do have a couple more questions about the Ravens than I do Cincinnati. That being said, I'm not going to doubt Lamar Jackson. I think if he's fully healthy, I think that team is going to be able to do it this year. I think the running back crew, as long as one of those guys are healthy from last season, they'll be a lot better. They'll be a bit more balanced, I feel. As a great man once said, perfectly balanced as all things should be is what the Ravens offense needs. So I think just barely the Ravens will be my second seed in the division. And the Bengals are my first. I think Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are electric, and they have a chance to own this division for a while, and I don't see it stopping this year. But again, it's very close. Like, it's a 1-win difference. Like, if I got the Bengals at 11 wins, I got Baltimore at 10. Or if I have the Bengals getting 12 wins, I got Baltimore at 11. Like, I think both are going to be pretty good this season. I will say, I have those two splitting because in the game the Ravens win, they will be trailing going into the fourth quarter, and Lamar Jackson will have to use the bathroom during a Bengals possession. He's going to come back out. He's going to absolutely win them that game. So that is my prediction for the AFC North this upcoming season. Justin, your predictions go last.
I love your ultra-specific predictions, Jared. Those are fantastic. All right, so I do have Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh and Cleveland towards the bottom. When I went through it, I had them both hovering around 6-11. I could see either team going like 4-13. I don't really love them either one this season. Both have really strong defenses. Both have very big questions at the quarterback position. So we'll see. It's really going to rest on the shoulders of those running backs. Can Nick Chubb and can Najee Harris really, will their teams into playoff spots? But I don't see it happening. As my number 2 team, I am going to go with the Ravens. I do. I think they have the ability to win the division. I don't think it's going to happen this year. And honestly, I really struggle with this because I do think that the Ravens are a more complete team, but the Bengals offense is just so much better than anything that the Ravens have at this point, with a really young revamped offensive line, great young receivers, a good running game, a solid running back in Joe Mixon. And I just think Joe Burrow is the better traditional quarterback, in my opinion. That being said, I do have the Ravens making the playoffs. I have them going about 11-6, and I think that the Bengals can either go 12-5 or even 13-4. So I have Bengals winning that division in the AFC North.
Yeah, and it's more than fair. And again, they're meeting the final game of the season. That could be what decides what the whole division right there.
And don't forget, the Ravens were actually in the playoff hunt in the last game of the season, and it came down to an overtime game with Pittsburgh in which they lost.
Sure.
So the Ravens could have made the playoffs last year with all of that, terrible injury concern and rough play when they had guys out. So they're a really good team.
Yeah. If Lamar never gets hurt against Cleveland, they're probably making the playoffs.
If Lamar doesn't get hurt, they might have won that division. They had a lead early on in that season. So.
And that definitely would have been something to play around with. I mean, hey, we could say this, like the final week of the NFL regular season. I mean, we would have to go through like what the schedule would be right now, but I love the fact that we got some division matchups there. You got what could be for the top spot in the division overall between the Bengals and the Ravens, and you have what could be the ultimate showdown between Joshua Dobbs and Chris Oladokun between the Steelers and the Cleveland Browns, and that is something that I personally am most excited for. I think the AFC North, like we said, hyper competitive. It should be a good division. I think we're going to get going to get some really good football out of the AFC North in 2022. But that just about wraps it up for this week's episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. 3 divisions down, 5 more to go, ladies and gentlemen. We will be going over the NFC North next week, and that's definitely one to watch out because you already heard what one of Justin's takes on the division. Rick has teased us that he has some thoughts about that division next week. I can't wait to hear what they are, and it's just going to be a fun time. Fellas, do either of you want to say some things to the nice, beautiful people before we head out?
Thanks for coming.
Basically,
Rick picked the Bears next week.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, basically just that. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being a part of it. All that fun stuff.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, and as we've said the last couple of weeks here on the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, we love having fun. We love talking football, and what we love to do the most is spread just a little bit of chaos, and that's what it's all about. Thank you all for joining us.
Now we're getting saucy with our language too.
Thank you all. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see you all next week.